All right, welcome everybody. Looks like we've got a good group. My name is Teresa Law. I am the Director of Product Marketing for the Risk Products here at ServiceNow. And we're happy to have you, whether you've joined us live or on demand. I'm very pleased to be joined by Joe Montgomery, the Senior Advisory Solution Architect here at ServiceNow for the Risk Products. Many of you may have security operations, vulnerability response, or security incident response. And either someone mentioned it to you, or you may be wondering if you had IRM, what more could you be doing? Or maybe you have both products already, and you're thinking, if I integrated them, what kind of added value would I get? Or how would I better be able to manage or mitigate my threats, my risks, my vulnerabilities, and get ahead of them? Well, that's exactly what Joe and I are going to be talking about today. But first, we have a couple of housekeeping tips that we have to go through. You are on mute. However, you'll see the Q&A button at the bottom. We want to make this interactive. We hope you have questions. We want to get them answered. So please use that. It is being recorded. I will put a link in the chat toward the end of the webinar with the link to the YouTube playlist for you. And at the end of the session, you may get a short survey. If you do, if you could take a couple of minutes to fill it out, that would be wonderful. So with that, let's dive in. We're going to talk about the challenge of disconnected tech and teams. We're going to talk about the benefits of integrated risk management and security together, and we're going to do a demo. So do not sign off early, because Joe is going to walk you through some amazing things. So I want you guys to raise your hand or put a note in the chat if you have these problems or in your organization, because I talk to customers and I hear this a lot, that maybe you've got security operations, you've got vulnerability response, and so you're connected with the IT teams. You're able to identify the vulnerabilities that need to be addressed. You're able to work with IT to get those remediated. You hope that you're getting all of them. You think you are, but there really isn't any oversight. And then risk comes in, and they've got assessments, and they want to make sure that we're complying with NIST or ISO or COSO, or we've implemented the CIS framework, and we want to make sure we're complying with that. And so there's a lot of time spent answering those assessments, maybe answering the same question more than once, and collecting evidence. And then on the risk side, they're disconnected also. They've got the risk and compliance team that's working very hard, but internal audit is also attempting to gather the information. So they're asking the risk and compliance teams. And then, of course, when auditors come in, they may have questions, or they may find issues. So it's another, round of questions. And all of this is inefficient. It is time consuming, and time is money. And it's also, very, very difficult to get ahead of any of these threats or risks, because there's opportunity cost. So I don't know, Joe, if you're hearing the same thing or not.
Yeah, definitely, Teresa. So, we see a lot of talking about within the IRM space, trying to break down the silos between the lines of defense, which I think, we're certainly doing with ServiceNow. A lot of the GRC technologies are, but with ServiceNow, and one of the reasons that we're having a lot of these conversations is taking it a step further, being ServiceNow an enterprise platform where you are, managing your security and operations, breaking down that silo, right? Using all of that data within your cyber risk program. And that's a conversation that we're having on a daily basis. So definitely front and center.
Yeah, it really is a hot topic. So we can help. That's the good news. We can show you how you can work together, where your risk and security products can work together, and the additional value they can provide. So you've probably got IT operations going. You've got your risk and compliance products here engaging the front line, continuously monitoring. You've got your security operations products out there proactively anticipating vulnerabilities. And you've got your operational resilience. You're building that to be able to anticipate, prevent disruptions, or at least minimize the impact to your business, and having it all on one platform. Now, the beauty of this is right down at the bottom down here is now you have executive insights across all of this, and we'll show you an example of that. But that is invaluable. So what does that actually look like? This is what we're hoping that you'll be able to see that you can achieve by the end of the webinar. A connected workflow across all of your teams. The ability to answer the questions once and apply it to many regulations. So you're reducing the amount of time you're spending on those. You're able to hopefully spend more time getting ahead of those risks, those threats, and those vulnerabilities. And you're reducing the amount of time that you're spending from a risk perspective with auditors and the other team members. So shared information. And the platform is actually what makes that happen. So let's talk a little bit about some of the features and how it actually works. So this, Joe, I'm going to turn this over to you because I love this slide. But show us how this all works together.
Yeah, so this is a good one. I think it gives a good representation of kind of what the mechanics are between, when we apply IRM kind of on top of security and vulnerability. So I'll start on the left and just talk through kind of with what's in our integrated risk management square here is really your traditional IRM lifecycle, right? We identify a risk, whether that be through your existing risk register, market research, right? Or whether we're doing information gathering questionnaires against applications or business services, right? We identify the risk. Of course, we then assess and evaluate that risk, define what my control environment is. What controls do I need to have in place in order to effectively mitigate that risk? And that's where we can take advantage of some guidance from RMF, CSF, CIS, ISO, right? There's a lot of different frameworks out there that organizations choose to adopt. Some of that content we provide with our accelerators, which I think we'll talk about a little bit. So identifying what that control environment is, and then of course, once we have those controls identified, we need to monitor those controls. So through various, control assurance features that we have, whether it be attestations, testing, or continuous monitoring through our control and risk indicators, which is what we'll focus on a little bit today. But monitoring those risks and controls once they're in place, and then of course issue remediation management, and then rolling that all up through reporting. So that's really your traditional risk management lifecycle. And when we talk about that from a cyber risk perspective, what are two of the key inputs that we would need to actually monitor whether those controls and risks are what they should be? Controls operating effectively and risk, being within the threshold. So two of the key components, two of the key inputs are a security incident response program and a vulnerability response program. So when we look at security incident response, integrating with the SIM, triaging and prioritizing security incidents, determining what we're going to do about it. And when we need to, that security incident can be escalated to be an issue or a risk event within IRM, right? With a click of a button, we have that integration to be able to determine that this security incident, maybe it led to a service outage. Maybe it's just something we need to track further or roll up through IRM reporting, right? So we have that integration from security incident response into IRM directly into that traditional IRM lifecycle. When we look at it from a vulnerability response perspective, right, we're integrating with the scanner. We are prioritizing those vulnerabilities within vulnerability response. We are defining and creating remediation efforts. All of that content, when we look at those CSF and CIS frameworks, they're all saying that we need to have these vulnerability monitoring programs in place. So those are controls that we have within IRM. If that data is within ServiceNow, we can automatically monitor that data and that program is working appropriately to determine that our controls are effective. So it's having that data on the platform and plugging it directly into your IRM program. That's where the better together between these two are. And again, when we're talking about a cyber risk program, those are two key inputs. So if we are doing it all on one platform, like we do within ServiceNow, we take advantage of all that data. So, I mean, it can be an absolute game changer when we are all on one platform. And so those are kind of the key components here.
Yeah, I love, like I said, I love the way that this makes it simplifies the way that we actually work together. And you see the oversight here that we were talking about earlier, and then also the ability to actually take action and help you improve your security and risk posture. So we're going to go through a couple of just capabilities that Joe's going to touch on later in his demo, but just to highlight some of the things that we can do when we have security and risk together. And continuous monitoring is just really that kind of holy grail of what we're trying to accomplish is being able to identify threats and vulnerabilities quickly, being able to see if something didn't get taken care of that you actually thought got taken care of. Because the worst thing that could happen is you think something has been patched, and it hasn't. And so that's a great invitation for attackers to come in, and then you've got a breach, and that's a different problem entirely. But it's not just vulnerabilities and security incidents. Just to make sure everyone knows, as Joe said, if it's in the platform, we can monitor it. So it can be vendors, it could be compliance audit, it could be applications, and we use the information in the CMDB to be able to identify the context of the different vulnerabilities that we're seeing and how severe that is.
And one thing on this one, Teresa, too, is I love that statement at the bottom that data created by daily activities already exists within the platform. So as your organization adopts ServiceNow in more and more areas, HR, customer service, all of these you're leveraging to use for daily activities. And that creates data that we can monitor from a compliance standpoint. So this is, vulnerability security incidents is key. And right in our wheelhouse, definitely. But any data on the platform, I can't stress that enough that we really take advantage of that. So,
and I think the subtle point there is, as you said, it's constantly being imported into the platform, ingested into the platform. So it's being updated. So the thing is, it's current. So when you're looking at this data, you're getting the most current information that you can, because we are constantly updating it. So adding to it and updating it. But yeah, this is kind of the holy grail. But it's not the only thing. We help you get there with our cybersecurity accelerators. So, the thing that I find really interesting here is the number of control objectives that we offer. 191 control objectives to get you started. Indicator templates. We hear a lot of times people say, we have to get started. How do we get started? This is the way to jumpstart that implementation, to get to a faster time to value. So I really love these accelerators. And I know you're going to touch on them in your demo. And then here, we talked about earlier that executive oversight, how you can pull it all together in one place. Well, in this case, we have an example of our CISO dashboard. So being able to see policy compliance, configuration compliance, vulnerabilities, security incidents, being able to look at your security automation from a labor value or security automation from the hours saved, all on one dashboard. And these are configurable. So Joe, you could put whatever you wanted on here that was important to your organization, right?
Yep, 100%. Yeah, we provide a good placeholder, from a reporting standpoint, but any data point that we have within the system, we can report on, put on dashboards, right? So.
And I've heard several stories where part of the problem that organizations were facing is that their upper level management was continually asking questions, and so they were continually providing reports. Upper level management not only needs to have the visibility to be able to feel confident that they're making the right decisions, but they also need to have that visibility so that they can work with their peers on anything. And, a lot of this information that we have here actually gets used in reports to the board. So the other kind of subtle thing here is, if you've got this information, if you're getting it on a near real-time basis, if it's current and accurate, then the conversations you're having when you take this information to the board are a lot more valuable, and the board can be a lot more effective. So this really just dominoes both up and also from the executives to the board, and also down, to be able to have conversations at the director, at the analyst, at the manager level. It's so powerful.
And Teresa, we did get a question that came in. So and I think I can take this, but is the integration based on Integration Hub, or is the integration between IRM and SecOps? Is it out of the box available with standard IRM? So that question, this is how I answer that question. It's not even an integration. You don't even need to think about it as an integration. It doesn't require Integration Hub. It is one platform, one data model. So, and I'll show you how we can monitor that data, but it's just a matter of pointing to the proper tables that we would all have access to, because it's all on one platform. So the requirements for them working together, IRM standard would give you the ability to continuously monitor with indicators. So IRM standard, I think that answers the question.
Well, you've got another question though now.
Oh,
can you relate the CIS ISO accelerator to the NIST CSF accelerator that is used as a basis of the risk and control library?
Yeah, that's another good question. And I'll show this in the demo, but all of our content packs map back to the UCF ID. So UCF is one of our common content provider integrations that we have. So any of our control packs would work with that as well. So there's that common unique identifier that would cross map across CSF, CIS, ISO, so that if you have a control that an indicator or something that would work for multiple frameworks, we have that functionality. So,
and we also have several different content packs on the store from a variety of partners, UCF, Agile, others, so we definitely have the information there if people need it. All right, we haven't got any more questions, and I think we're now just about to the end of our slides. I'm going to build this out because kind of the last thing I want to talk about is automation and the ability to respond quickly. Because as I said, the longer a vulnerability lingers, or a threat lingers, or a risk lingers, the more difficult it is, the more likely it is that an attacker is going to be able to find it. So, being able to automate response is huge. And we use our AI ML capabilities to be able to automatically generate an issue when they see that vulnerability that hasn't been addressed in 2 weeks, that we all thought was patched, but it hasn't been patched for some reason, and it now represents a risk to the business. You can automatically generate an issue using AI to be able to assign it to the appropriate team or individual. And then as they go through that, AI also offers remediation suggestions. So they're able to look at what AI has suggested based upon previous remediations, see if those work for them, and then remediate it quickly. And they can also, because this issue is something on the same platform, and we're all working on the same platform, the risk team, the security team, and the IT team is all able to collaborate. And then from an audit perspective, you now have an audit trail to show that you've actually remediated this issue and how you've done it effectively and efficiently. So that's the other thing that we try to do as part of ServiceNow in general, but that's really great when you're putting risk and security and IT together.
Yeah, so, and all of our different within IRM, all of our different product lines, whether we're talking policy, compliance, risk, audit, all of them have specific AI ML roadmaps. So it's continuously being, leveraged more and more within the different solutions out of the box. So
yeah, and we actually have some very cool use of this in our latest release here that we just put on the store. So if you missed that webinar, you can go back and check it on the YouTube playlist for risk management. All right, by one plug there. You can get a lot of benefits from this. We talked about a lot of them, but just putting some numbers up here. Being able to mitigate risks faster, identify them faster, You're reducing cost. You're saving significant amounts of time. And then, being able to accelerate innovation. You're reducing the time to automate the control testing. You're able to spend that time doing things that are going to be more valuable and let you get ahead of things. We do have a question, though, I think on the last slide, though, Joe. How many tasks and issues until AI picks up at creating a similar remediation task? So like first training it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that there's no minimum threshold to training, but I think it's more of a how big of a pool do you need for it to accurately recommend the right remediation tasks or assignment groups or, issue name. So I don't believe there's a technical minimum, but you can run the training at whatever point you need to, but based on the volume of data that you have, obviously the more data that you have, the better training it will be. So
yeah, I think that, it all depends on how many your issues you're running through there. It's got to see a few of them before it can actually recognize it.
The idea is that it continually gets better over time, right? The more data that you have, the better that the AI ML gets, the more accurate.
Yep. Absolutely. And now, I keep saying, and now, but now, it truly is time for the demo. So please keep the questions coming. You're going to see some great stuff here. We want to make sure that, that you understand what we've got and we get your questions answered. So use that Q&A button.
Yeah, and Teresa will keep me honest on questions that come in, so don't hesitate. We'll try to answer live as quickly as we can. And this is going to be, kind of a quick high-level demo here, but just want to highlight some of the capabilities within IRM as it relates to continuous monitoring of security and vulnerability data. But where I'm going to start is within a risk management workspace. So within the IRM domains, we provide workspaces as the engagement layer for really your risk and compliance teams for their daily work, right? So we have different workspaces that we provide out of the box around the different areas, right? Risk, ESG, compliance, vendor, all the different domain areas have their own role-based workspace. Configurable, right? You can build these as you need to, but the idea here is that we present the data that's relevant to you when you log into the system. So what's assigned to you, my task, what's assigned to my group task. So this is where I'm going to start here is on the risk management workspace, and not going to go through really much about reporting or anything, but just to give you an idea of how we break down the information, right? Looking at risk by the risk category. Of course, the always popular heat map, which we'll get into here in a moment. Net loss, all of my key risk indicator breaches that have happened, any overdue tasks, tracking controls or indicators by status, right? Again, any data point is reportable. We can trend over time, which can be important in the risk management space. What I'm going to do for the demo, I'm going to open up a risk and we'll look at, we've got the risk assessment, we've got the mitigating controls, we've got any issues that may have come in against that risk. And then we'll look at the indicator and talk through the what goes into creating an indicator and some of the content that we have. Okay, so I'm going to start by opening up my heat map workbench here. And this is looking at my IT risk assessment and just plots all of my risks based on my impact and likelihood scales. So, something that I'm sure most people are familiar seeing with the heat map here. This is configurable. You can have different risk methodologies too. So if we're looking at, today we're focused more on the IT cyber risk, but if you are looking at things more at an enterprise or operational risk perspective, there are different assessment methodologies that we can leverage. So within the heat map here, I can, click on a quadrant and expand a quadrant to see if there's additional risks. I can click on a specific risk entry. And when I do that, on the right side of the screen here is just going to be my high level information about that risk. So for loss of availability, I can see who my owner is. I can see what entity, in this case, this is our financial accounting business service. So a service being provided here. This is a risk specific to that service. We can see what my current risk rating is, any trending over time, what my current risk response is. So we've chosen to mitigate this risk. any open risk events or open issues. So this is all part of the risk heat map, just a quick visual of everything associated with that risk. What I'm going to do is open up this risk record here. And we will land on the overview tab. So this is, again, that specific loss of availability risk tracked against a business service. We can see what the overall life cycle is. So we've already gone through and done a few things. Again, I'm not going to go through the full life cycle, but we've gone through an assessment. We defined that we were going to mitigate this risk, and currently this risk is in a monitoring state. Okay, so as we scroll down, again, you can just see some of the high-level information about the risk itself. Our residual risk is moderate. We had a high inherent risk, but our controls are mostly effective. So that's where we get to our residual risk score. We can see what the effectiveness of all of my mitigating controls are directly on the overview tab, as well as the other data that we kind of already saw, right? Are there any risk indicator breaches? Are there any open issues? What's overdue? Similar with control testing or risk events, right? Just really being able to visualize the entire ecosystem of that risk on the overview tab. Now, as we go through, you'll see the different related lists here. So I can have access to my previously completed risk assessment and see what the scores are from that. So if you have let's say we're doing an annual risk assessment against all of the risks, you'd be able to see those over time. We can see what the mitigating controls are in place for this risk. So I've got a handful, and then one of the things I'll call out here is my source, right? So this is some of that accelerator that we have and providing that content. So I've got one that came from our CIS content pack, others from the UCF integration, but just being able to see where this data comes from as we go through and monitor that data. And then a couple of things. So we talked about in the one slide, we talked about, if we have a security incident, maybe it gets escalated to become an issue, right? So if a service outage was ultimately came from a security incident and we created it from there, we defined, what risk it's associated with, what service actually experienced the outage, and being able to tie that directly to the risk is what we see here. So this could have originated, from a security incident and tied to the applicable IRM entities. Okay, so we have the risk events and the issues, but the thing I'm going to focus on for the next couple minutes is the indicators. And this is how we continuously monitor data on the platform to determine whether our risks are, within the appropriate thresholds or appetites, or whether our controls are compliant or non-compliant. So this indicator where we're monitoring vulnerabilities that may be impacting the availability of a specific service. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this indicator. And one of the things that you'll see here is, or I'll just kind of go through and talk through. So we can define these indicators as either a risk indicator or a control indicator. So KRIs or KCIs. In this case, this indicator is in place to monitor a risk. We can see that we've got a name, we've got a description. What service is it that we're actually monitoring this indicator against, as well as what risk? And then we define the method, right? So within an indicator, we can define different methods. The basic indicator is going to monitor data on the ServiceNow platform, but we do have the ability to have manual indicators where we're sending out a task for completion, or scripted indicators where you can kind of get as crazy as you need to get through scripting. But what we'll focus on and what we typically talk to is the basic indicator. And again, what that allows us to do is define criteria on the platform that we want to monitor in order to determine whether, how this risk is performing. So what's my target type, count or percentage, what's my target? And, if the value meets or exceeds that target value, is this indicator passing or failing? Okay. So
I actually have a question for you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But this is actually pretty common, I think. I think a lot of people probably have this question. You're talking about indicators here. So can you tell us a little bit the difference between indicators and metrics? Because a lot of people think maybe we rebranded our indicators to be metrics.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So indicators are going to be a little bit more binary. So indicators are a pass fail. And so you can, think about it. It's easy to think about from a control perspective. if you have an indicator monitoring a control, if that indicator fails, then that control becomes non-compliant. So it's more of a pass-fail threshold, to where metrics, the new risk metric functionality that was released back in, oh boy, San Diego, maybe.
Yeah.
Rome,
Recently.
maybe. I don't remember, but that's where we can have more of a red, amber, green threshold. So RAG reporting is what we typically hear it called. So you can define different thresholds where you can, it's similar, you can monitor data on the platform, but it's more of a high, medium, low type of performance versus a pass fail. So we have both of those available now.
And trending, I think metrics also look at trending, I believe.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but good question.
I'm holding the other couple of questions until you get to another spot.
Okay, perfect. So, and this is where, when we define the actual criteria of the indicator that's going to monitor the risk or control, this is where we can look into other tables within the platform. So in this case, again, we're looking for vulnerabilities impacting availability. So we're looking at a vulnerable item. Is the state not closed and the reason is not fixed, or the reason is empty? And the state is not deferred with a reason is not mitigating control, or the reason is empty, right? And then your business criticality is either most critical or somewhat critical, right? So you get the idea of how you can define what that criteria is that you want to monitor and be alerted either through the creation of an issue or just the flagging of a failed indicator that, we're defining something that the system's going to monitor up so that we don't have to continuously monitor it, and just be alerted when there's something that we need to take action on, or maybe that control failed. So this is just the ability to, again, define the table, define the data. We, again, with the accelerators, we provide a lot of that content as a place, as a starting point for you, but it's going to be totally up to you to take advantage of this functionality to define what it is you want to, want the system to monitor for you. Okay. And these can run as frequently. You can define the frequency. So whether it's daily, monthly, weekly, right? You can define the frequency. And then each time this runs, we'll gather an indicator result, which will give you the data on the, we got a result, but why? If it failed, what's the record that created that failure, and having access to that. Okay. Any questions on indicators?
Oh, we got a couple of just came in. Is in the criteria, can I dot walk to the SecOps tables?
Yep. Yeah, you definitely can. So these ones are looking at the vulnerability tables, so you can see how you can dot walk. So I think I want to, yeah. So in this case, this is vulnerability, but you've got access. You define the table that you want as the primary target, and then you can dot walk from there. So you can see I've got access to all of the, in this case, vulnerability, but yeah, dot walking capabilities are certainly present here.
And in your indicator example, where are the CIs defined?
So the CI is the entity that we're monitoring. So that's how you can think about it, as we've created for this financial accounting service is a record in this business service table and stored as a CI. So within IRM, we have this concept of entities that kind of extends the CI for IRM activities, is the best way that I can explain it quickly. But we use this reference field that looks at the exact field for that unique identifier, so that we're monitoring, in this case, vulnerabilities against that specific service that's in the CMDB.
Fabulous. So the next one is, I'll take a stab at it, then you can add to that.
Sure.
Is there a library of SecOps to IRM indicators? And I'm going to kind of combine this with the other question about, the different content packs. So my answer to that is, there isn't exactly a library, but we do offer content packs that provide you with those indicator templates, as we saw earlier on the cybersecurity controls accelerator. So we have, as far as accelerators, we have the cybersecurity controls accelerator, we have technology controls accelerator, which helps us with CIS and ISO. We have SOX content packs, we have the NIST CSF accelerator, And we also have something called continuous authorization and monitoring. Now, it's not truly an accelerator, but it is a solution that helps you comply with NIST RMF and gives you that sort of leg up on being able to do that, because it does contain some content and accelerators and control objectives. So that's the way I would answer that. Would you add anything to that, Joe?
Oh, that's a perfect segue. So one thing I was going to kind of wrap up with is, so we have that technology controls monitoring accelerator, and part of that specific accelerator is it's not necessarily a complete library of indicators, but it is that starting point. So I think, I forget how many it is, Teresa, I want to say
191.
91 predefined indicators.
Yep.
Some are manual, some are basic, where we're monitoring that data. So this is that list of indicators that we have. And let me just filter on the basic here. So we've got the name, and just to quickly show you, what my collection frequency is, what control or risk that we have it in place as. Here's those related UCF IDs. So if we have that defined, we'll present it here so that cross mapping can occur. But you can see what my CIS versus ISO control. But the most important thing here that I like to highlight is the table. So what table is this indicator monitoring data from? And you can see a few that we have, policy, event, change request is a big one, right? That's a part of every cyber framework is managing changes, and that's a key part of ServiceNow. So that data's here, let's monitor it. Why would we go out and have manual activities around it? But you'll see also things like security incident. There's quite a bit here. So, and this goes beyond security and vulnerabilities, right? Again, any data point that we have within the platform, we can monitor. And this just gives you an idea of some of the tables that we have in our predefined accelerator content packs.
And speaking of those, got a couple questions about, how they get these. So they're part of, right now, they're part of IRM Pro and Enterprise, obviously. I do know that we're going to be moving some of them down to IRM standards. So, right now, IRM Pro, and in the future, you should be able to get a few of them in IRM standard also. We do have a question about backing it up to the initial dashboard you were showing, the workspace you were showing about the heat map. But I love the fact that you can see the tables here. I think that really shows you that we are able to tie the security and the risk capabilities together. And you're able to monitor 191, which is a huge number of indicators. So the question we had back on the workspace is about the heat map. The question was, in San Diego, it was hard coded. Now I thought in San Diego you could still make changes, but the question is, a new version customizable? So you can change the number of rows and columns. You can change the colors. Even in San Diego, you were able to do this, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's tied to the risk assessment methodology. So if you see, like right now, my methodology is IT, but let's just jump to my enterprise methodology. So you can see the colors change. I was on a 5x5 and now I'm on a 4x4. So the heat map follows the risk assessment methodology. So you define the heat map, the colors, what your impact and likelihood values are. So you could have a high, medium, low for one methodology. You could have a, critical, whatever your other values are with, less of a high, medium, low type of taxonomy. So you can have different methodologies with different taxonomies, and you can control all of the inputs there. So
yeah, I'm not quite sure where the configuration is, but I think if you need help with that, ideally our documentation be able to show that to you, or reach out, obviously, to ServiceNow.
Yeah.
We do have another question that came in. Just to confirm, we are using the UCF ID and we associated the CSF accelerator for risk statements, as long as they are using the accelerators in the platform. It should be easy to associate to the CIS ISO. So they're using I think they're using the CSF accelerator, which is the NIST CSF accelerator that we had previously.
Yeah. Okay. That, I'm not positive about the CSF accelerator because that one's been around for a little while.
Right.
If that one has the UCF IDs, that's something that we can
look into that. But
Yeah.
but this is the technology controls accelerator, or the cybersecurity controls accelerator, and that is definitely, this is the newest one we've come out with, and this is definitely tied to the UCFIDs, and it does. So obviously it supports CIS and ISO, right?
Correct.
All right. All right. I don't see any more questions. If you have questions, please ask. Anything else you want to show us?
That's it. That's what I wanted to cover. So yeah, happy to dive into anything if there's questions. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk through the mechanics of it, how an indicator works, and then show that we do have some content to get you started. So
awesome. So then, to wrap it up, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Joe for presenting a fantastic demo. Please connect with us on our website. I put the link to the YouTube playlist in the chat, so you can go out and look at all of our on-demand webinars. We love to talk to you on the community. And obviously, I want to make sure you register for more webinars. We want to see you on future webinars. So again, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. Have a great day.